Welcome, everybody. My name is Stacy Fritz, and I want to welcome you to today's Food for Thought webinar. We do a monthly webinar unpacking all things related to the cancering journey, and mostly as it relates to nutrition. It is my deepest pleasure to welcome Sara Stratton back to our Food for Thought series. Sara is an oncology nutritionist with Remission Nutrition. Perhaps you recognize her, but she's a favorite around here. And she is going to guide our conversation today about building back strength and energy using mostly nutrition strategies. Today is about pulling out the lens on a larger size topic. We welcome all of your questions. So if there is something specific going on with your diagnosis or somebody you love that you want to ask a specific question about, if it's beyond today's content or today's scope of content, what I'll ask you to do is at the end, we'll give you Sara's email, her phone number. We'll give you all the information about how to find her, and I'll also give you mine. So if you're interested in expanding your work and doing a little bit more one-on-one with Sara, that's a possibility too. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Sara.
Thank you so much for having me today. Super excited to talk about this topic. As Stacy mentioned, I'm going to sneak in some things. We'll definitely talk about nutrition to build back our strength, but I really wanted also to talk about just how we can use exercise through our cancering journey from prevention through treatments to also keep our bodies strong, because they're like peanut butter and jelly, right? They just work so integral together, the nutrition and the exercise part. I'm going to share my screen. Like Stacy mentioned, I'm with Remission Nutrition. I am an oncology nutrition consultant. I also went through the American College of Sports Medicine Cancer Exercise Specialist training because exercise is a big passion of mine. And I'm a breast cancer survivor. And so exercise has always been a part of my life. I grew up playing soccer and then through college did triathlons and other kind of recreational competitive exercises and races and things of that nature. But even through my cancer
just
journey.
Pause for a second.
Yeah.
Listeners, look at those pictures. Look at you go, girl. That is incredible.
Yeah, so this is me with the Warrior sports bra. That's during radiation. One of my goals was to do a Spartan race, which I had done in the past, but was to prove to myself that I was still resilient through my cancer journey. So post chemo, post surgery, in the middle of radiation, I was like, you know what? I'm still working out. I can still rock it, and I can still.
I love that picture of you. You look amazing and strong. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and you can see me here right after chemo, still doing my strength training because that was so important to me to keep my muscles strong through chemotherapy. It is a catabolic treatment, right? So we do get some muscle wasting, and so we can counteract that through exercise, and that was important for me just to feel my resilience. My husband and I like to do bike rides together. We get out and do some bike rides. Like I mentioned, I played soccer kind of growing up, and one of my fun things was last weekend, I was invited to play in a 40 and over soccer competition. I hadn't played outdoor soccer in 25 years since high school. So I had to buy new cleats, but I've been exercising my whole life, so I felt confident just to at least be able to get out there and run around. Might not have the skills to do a lot more than that, but it was really fun just being able to remember that nostalgia and that play of things that we've done when we were younger and bring that to my life as a 45-year-old, being like, okay, showing my kids mom can get on the field and kick some balls around and chase down the opposite team.
And I think that even more importantly is to highlight, now, again, nobody's suggesting that we all have to go out and do a triathlon or these bigger races that Sara's showing us. But what was really intriguing to me as you unfolded these pictures is, in addition to on this journey, that didn't pause. And it appears that either the workaround happened or that you were doing something that continued to fuel the body in a way that you were still able to do the things that you loved.
Yeah. And I think even through a cancering journey, like some of us are very exercise dominant, right? Like obviously I have a long history of exercise. During my treatment, I had to reel it in a little bit, right? Because if we exercise too much, that can provide too much of a stress on the body. I don't have pictures of it, but through my treatment, I also found the softer side of exercise and got into yoga and mindfulness and more walking in nature and hiking. And while I was still have that competitive side, I definitely took my cancer journey as a message to exercise with purpose, right? And so maybe in the past, I was like, I'm going to go to CrossFit. I'm going to do all these like hard things. things. And then I had to reflect back and say, why am I doing that? And so now I do things more for fun, right? So fun and recreation and just to prove something to myself, but not to prove it to anybody else. So that's kind of a
Nice.
good reflection point.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And so I'll talk through some slides today on like how we can use exercise through the cancering journey, but exercise and nutrition therapy is intended as a way to treat or prescribe care, and anything that I'm talking about is more general. Definitely, if you're looking to start a new exercise program or more nutrition, just make sure you're locked in step with your care team. Exercise is medicine. I totally believe that, because exercise helps us with a lot of different things, right? It helps us with our metabolism. That's something that really I think is a priority with Remission Nutrition, is to make sure that our metabolism is working optimally, because our metabolism is a direct result of our mitochondrial health. And so if our mitochondria is healthy, that's going to be a way that we can make sure that our body is resilient against cancer. Exercise is great for mood, energy, cardiovascular health, bone health span, strength, cognition, cancer risk reduction, and cancer side effect mitigation. So I'll talk about maybe some different types of exercises and where they come in strong to support us as an adjunct through our treatments. So prevention side, so exercise has been known, and there's research that says those who exercise more often do have, it's cancer preventative, right? It can prevent in reoccurrences, and it's just preventative because if our body is healthy on the inside and our mitochondria is healthy and our weight is balanced and our muscle is healthy, those are all different things that can help prevent cancers. And we know that a lot of cancers are a disease of lifestyle, and so cancer or exercise is definitely an intervention in the lifestyle to kind of support our bodies. Specific cancer or specific exercises are also a prehabilitation. You can prehab before you go into surgery, or you can prehab before you go into chemotherapy to make sure you're going in as your strongest self. So we can use exercise to help you be resilient after treatment. We can use exercise as rehabilitation. So targeted exercises after treatment can help us improve health. If we've had surgery, improve range of motion, things like pain. So it can be definitely a rehabilitation support tool. Can be supportive as a neoadjunct treatment. So cancer is a powerful tool, or exercise is a powerful tool to support us to reduce cancer-related fatigue and treatment-related fatigue, and just support our mood and overall health during treatment. And then obviously survivorship. It's a great tool to bring in just to have resilience after everything we've been through treatment.
Sarah, give us an example of a prehabilitative exercise, just random, not necessarily customized for any one person. What would be an example of a prehabilitative exercise routine that somebody might put in place? Because again, you're shocked with this information, right? You've just been given the diagnosis, and oh, by the way, it might come along with some surgery. And what if the person really is not exercising at the moment for whatever reason? And we're looking at prehabilitative exercises. What might that look like in real time?
Yeah. So maybe somebody that maybe has a lung cancer might use like some cardiovascular exercise targeted before treatment to make sure that their lungs are healthy and strong to support breathing afterwards. Maybe somebody else that has maybe going to go through surgery or chemotherapy, or they're going to be more bedbound or have a longer recovery, might need to do some strength training building up to surgery or treatment so that they don't go through as much muscle wasting afterwards. So depending on the different treatment that they're going through in their specific case, it might be different aerobic exercises or different strength training exercises to counter what they're going to be facing through that treatment.
So here's our first question about this. One of our listeners heard that heavy lifting can increase free radicals in the body. Is that true?
We want, like, heavy lifting can increase free radicals during that exercise session, right? Which is fine, because the exercise might be like 45 minutes out of a day. So there might be a little bit of free radicals. There might be a little bit of inflammation, right? But it's very acute. But then the recovery of exercise diminishes all those things. And then we use things like antioxidants, omega-3s to reduce it. While the exercise session itself might upregulate some of those things, the after effect of the exercise down regulates it. So it's okay to be an acute little reaction.
Cheryl, did that answer your question? You can just put it in the chat. Just wanting to make sure that we're all on the same page. And then also, of course, weighing the what the purpose of the heavy lifting was and the big benefits of really increasing lean muscle tissue and what that looks like on the other side, and being
Yeah.
able to be an efficient calorie burner, being able to keep the integrity of lean muscle tissue is so important, just as you mentioned. I'm hoping Cheryl got her answer that she needed. Feel free to keep going. And Sarah, if she comes back in, I'll pause you for a moment.
Okay, great. All right, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the different exercise vehicles. So strength training, I guess, kind of building on that. What are the reasons why we want to build strength? Muscle, having more muscle mass is like our metabolic sink. And so whenever we eat carbohydrates, our glucose is going to go up. But the more muscle mass we have in our body, just inherently, that muscle will absorb some of that glucose to fuel our muscle activity versus raising our blood sugar. So it's just a muscle is a glucose storage mechanism. If we don't have that muscle, our glucose is going to go higher, our insulin is going to go higher, and we're going to be less metabolically healthy and optimized. Strength training supports against side effects, including muscle wasting. So we talked about how things like surgery and a prolonged recovery can be catabolic, chemotherapy can be catabolic. So if we have that muscle going into those treatments or post those treatments, it can counteract some of those muscle wasting side effects. It supports blood flow. So circulation is one of the 10 hallmarks of cancer. And so we really want to make sure that circulation is happening. And with muscle contractions and release, there's a lot of circulation benefits to that.
I
It
feel like this
enhances.
is the one topic too, as a trainer, and I'm hoping that you can commiserate with, I think strength training gets a bad rap, especially for us ladies. And I don't think as much as before because it's become more trending, if you will. But strength training can mean a lot of things, which I'm sure that we're going to dive a little deeper into and how that's supported with nutrition and whatnot. But what we're talking about, for just to make sure that we're all on the same page, strength training is anything that's providing a resistance to the muscle. It doesn't mean necessarily like the picture in here that we have to be in a gym or we have to have big heavy weights, but we do need to find really good strength training, resistance training. The body needs that. Again, there's a place for all of it. But if you do have a question, throw it in the chat, because the one I get frequently, not related to the cancering journey, is, aren't I going to bulk up? Aren't I going to bulk up? And the answer is going to be no. We do not have enough testosterone in our bodies, ladies. And the benefits of lifting appropriate, whatever kind of weights, far exceed what you're worried about, truly. Would you agree, Sarah? That's probably a misnomer that people misunderstand.
Yeah. And I think about women in my age group. I'm 45 now, but I've been on an aromatase inhibitor for 6 to 7 years now. So my estrogen is super low, and estrogen can help you, those hormones can help you maintain some of your muscle mass, right? But as we lose estrogen, just as we go through the menopause transition, or some of us who are taking therapies that are reducing our hormones, we are losing that anabolic signal where we are naturally just maintaining muscle mass. So we have to counteract that, right? And strength training is one of the biggest ways we can counteract that hormone decline, to send our muscles a message that, like, we still want you on board. And like you said, I wish strength training would make me more bulky. I've been strength training for 20 years and I have muscle, but I don't think I'm bulky yet.
Yeah. Cheryl did come back, and her follow-up question, Sarah, is, would you maybe recommend not lifting heavy every single day?
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend lifting heavy every single day because our muscles need time to recover. So when we strength train, our tissues are breaking down, but the tissues need time and protein and nutrients to rebuild back up. And so, yeah, if we're strength training heavy every day, that can cause a little bit of inflammation, because that's an acute inflammation that we're doing through strength training. But if we're doing it every day, that can be a little bit inflammatory. So we need our body's time to recover so that we can rebuild and then come back stronger. So I recommend maybe strength training maybe 3 days a week. If you're more advanced, maybe to start off with 2 days a week. But yeah, every day might be a little much, especially because we want to bring in some of the other exercise modalities to complement strength training.
Yeah. Good. Great.
Awesome.
Questions from anyone before we move on from strength training? I just pulled something off my shelf that I just wanted to show you. I'm not selling anything. I'm just showing you. We're just sitting here talking about lifting dumbbells that you can see in the pictures, which is what most people would think of when we talk about lifting weights. We think of big, bulky, and Sarah just went over all that. But strength training by way of things like resistance bands, where you are providing a pushback on the muscle using something like this. Again, we're moving through this topic fairly quickly because we want to get to the whole bigger picture. But I just want to make sure we're not scaring anybody off.
Yeah.
Sarah led with strength training. And for me, it just reminds me of everyone I work with, which is strength training scares some people. And I don't want you to be fearful of that. I want you to ask the questions, number one. And number two, you're going to find an appropriate professional to help you through. There's many of us that can specialize in being able to progress and digress exercises wherever you are. So maybe you're not lifting, we'll just call it 20 pounds. Maybe you're lifting 10 pounds. Maybe you're lifting 5 pounds. Maybe
Or your body weight.
Or body weight even. It's the strength training is a big bucket for a lot of things. So I don't want you to get hung up on those big heavy dumbbells that you see in the picture.
Yeah, good call. Yeah, I think wherever you can start with strength training, that's where you start, right? So whether it's body weight, whether it's bands, whether it's barbells or dumbbells, whether it's Pilates, whatever it is that provides that resistance to your body, even rucking, right? Just putting like a little weighted vest on your back and walking around.
Did you hear what she said? The word rucking. It's one of my favorites. You put a big heavy backpack on there and you just take a walk. Don't you love the word? I just love it.
I know.
I learned it from my kid that was in the military. I'm like, what the? I'm like, that's called hiking. Hiking with a backpack is called rucking.
Yeah.
All right. Before we go on, Sarah, just so we can bring our community in, put in the chat. If you do exercise, just put in there what your favorite kind of exercise is. I just want to see. I will, Candace. In one moment, I will ask that question. Anybody have a favorite? Nobody on the call exercises. Don't lie to me. I know you all do. Yoga and hiking. Nice. Anyone else? Hiking without a pack. You don't ruck, Lynette? Biking, Pilates, weightlifting, and hiking. Thank you. Awesome. Pilates. Love it. Love, love. Okay. Before Sarah goes further, Sarah, one last question here. Can you describe how increased muscle mass decreases glucose or controls glucose?
Yes. So your muscle fibers are very mitochondrially active, which means that they need energy sources to keep them maintained, right? So the muscle is just like a mitochondrial powerhouse. And so whenever we eat carbohydrates, whether it's vegetables, fruits, other things, our muscles are going to suck in those nutrients and that glucose because they need that to maintain their energy sources. So that means that they're sucking them in to keep them maintained, helping them grow, which means it doesn't go through your bloodstream to increase your glucose. So it's like your kind of like storage, it's storing it, which can also help you. Say you do some fasting sometimes and you are going for a long walk or a hike and you haven't had a lot of food, your body will pull from your muscles to liberate that glycogen that was stored to help fuel your other exercise or just your body's, whatever your body needs to survive. So it's a storage vehicle for that glucose, and it can be liberated to fuel your body for other mechanisms.
Great explanation. Feel free to keep loading in the chat. I love all your exercise. That's awesome. And that was a great explanation, Sarah.
I saw a few Pilates in there, and I recently started some reformer Pilates, and man, you definitely need some good strength to do some of that.
Definitely, with all those apparatuses. I love it too. It's incredible. It's incredible. But I think the larger point here is you're going to find something you love, something that you're interested in, and we're going to support it nutritionally and holistically. And these are just ideas, just to thought joggers to get you going. Nothing on here is something that there's not one thing. It's the thing that works for you.
Yeah, that's what you like to do, because whatever you like to do, you'll be consistent with it. So it's finding that thing. Aerobic is another way that we can support our body, especially our heart, our Aerobic activity supports our mitochondria and our energy production. I think about aerobic exercise as supporting our VO2 max. So our VO2 max is like our cardiac output, and it's one of the biggest predictors of all-cause mortality. The higher VO2 max we have, which is driven a lot through aerobic exercise, has a direct correlation to how long we live and how healthy we live, so our health span and our lifespan. Aerobic exercise also counters the impact of cardiac side effects that we get through a lot of treatment. So a lot of chemotherapies and other treatments do have risks to our heart and our muscle. And so the stronger that we can regain that after those treatments, the better our health can be moving forward. A lot of cancer patients don't eventually succumb to cancer. They succumb to the side effects caused by the cancer treatments. So we can use aerobic exercise to help support our bodies after treatments. And then it can also support with blood sugar management because when we're going through aerobic activities like running, swimming, cycling, walking, rucking, those are all ways to naturally just decrease our glucose because our body's using that to fuel the exercise. So I think with aerobic exercise, we definitely find what you like, what your body can do, whether it's going on a stationary bike, going for walks up the hills. If you like swimming, swimming's great. Whatever kind of gets that heart pumping is a good sign that you're working that muscle.
Sarah, I'm going to jump in here real quick because I'm just thinking about, and I'm forefront thinking about perhaps what others might be thinking. I remember when my brother was on his journey, some of the times that during the treatment, many times during treatment, all treatments, he didn't feel great, right? And so we put in place, and I'm curious to know your opinion. All we need to get in is a 10-minute after dinner stroll.
Yep.
That was the ticket. If all else fails, we're going to sit down and we're going to eat as a family. We're going to pray on it. We're going to have special family time. And the one thing that we're going to do in the category of exercise is nothing big today. We're taking a stroll. And sometimes that looked like around the cul-de-sac 3 times, right? So I share this with you because, again, my worry is that we don't want to go so lofty with our goals that we're exhausting ourselves in a time period where we need rejuvenation and healing, and we need a minute, right? But what Sarah is mentioning about this aerobic, taking care of our heart, they all count, is what I'm trying to say. So wherever you are in your journey, sometimes it's about pulling back, as Sarah mentioned, to a different kind of exercise. And if you've just had surgery, you've been cleared to do whatever, that transition back to what once was sometimes feels a little deflating. And we had many a chuckle and many a angry word about this 10-minute stroll, but I'll tell you what, it checkmarked a lot of boxes: family time, prayer, a routine. And
getting outside
where you are in your journey, I just want you to know you're seen and you're heard, because I too have been there with a couple people that I love, and I get it. And when you don't feel well, you don't feel like moving your arse. I'm not trying to be funny, but that's the reality. He would say all the time, I don't feel like it. I get it. I get it. But finding these little micro movements, these moments where you can check mark a couple things at the same time, I just was constantly trying to strategize. What does this really look like? What does this really look like? So maybe it's not the gym, maybe it's not the reformer, maybe it's not the hike, but you can take a couple laps around the cul-de-sac holding your sweetheart's hand, or your brother's hand for that matter. And we did do a lot of that. And I have great memories of that.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's one thing I recommend to my clients is just finding somebody to go for a little walk with because like you said, it checks a lot of boxes: the community, the walk, getting outside, getting that sun exposure. All of those things are very healing. So
It was the only time that he would dump his bucket and talk too. Because I was like, can we go 11 minutes? Because this is good.
Yeah. Awesome.
Exercise makes you chat.
Moving on to high intensity. So this might be after we're post whatever treatment we're going through, but high exercise in activity and exercise really kind of supports our power, which naturally declines as we age. And so we want to do little bursts of movements, whether it's running up our stairs or doing an actual exercise to provide, we have different muscle fibers. So providing our muscle fibers that catabolic activity to like really stretch them a little bit. So high intensity exercise can counteract aging because that declines over time. It can also stimulate apoptosis and autophagy. So we talk a lot about that as it relates to the hallmarks of cancer, wanting our cells to kind of turn over. And the demands of high intensity exercise can help support that cellular turnover so that senescent cells that become dysregulated are cleared out and fresh new cells are grown in their place. And so that's another reason
Can you
why we
give
want.
a couple more examples? I love the running up the stairs because I have a funny feeling that might be where we are sometimes, but what would be another example for power for our
Yeah.
listeners that they might enjoy?
Yeah, maybe some jump rope if anybody can do that. Maybe just sitting in a chair and doing some kind of squats where you're like just doing that kind of rapidly. And I think about maybe you're doing it for 20 seconds,
Yeah.
as much as you can, and then taking a 2-minute rest and then
One
doing
of our
that again.
listeners, Cheryl, had mentioned that one of her favorites to exercise was the rebounder.
Oh,
And I
yep.
was thinking, gosh, that's got so many benefits to it too, but that would count as under power. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah,
So
rebounding is great.
she uses a rebounder 3 times a day.
I
That's
love
amazing.
that. Yeah. 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 So yeah, whatever you can do to just activate those muscles and stress them just a little bit, but for a short amount of time, we think about exercise snacks sometimes. So exercise snacks are just small bursts of exercise. And there's been studies that show that like just doing small bursts of exercise, whether it's like 30 seconds a day, a few times a week, can really provide some really great benefits. So that's like if you're sprinting up your stairs, or if you're doing some jump rope, or if you're doing some kind of like body weight squats, just really kind of stimulating that kind of like those muscles. There really
Ooh.
is some great benefits.
Luann mentioned that she uses a weighted vest while walking the dog. You go, girl. That's hard.
Yeah.
That's hard.
That's
That's
awesome.
really hard. I have a link to a video that is a quite famous workout that's the 4-minute workout. And it's nothing that is too awful. And again, the key words there being 4 minutes. I will put that in the show notes. And if you're looking for a way to enter into this kind of conversation with power, you can use that one, no problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And when that mentioned the nitric oxide dump, which I think is perfect, that's exactly what we're talking about here, is just a short way to dump that nitric oxide, support that carbon dioxide, work the body just in short sessions. That's a really great exercise.
Yeah.
Balance is another one that's really important to us, especially as we age, because if we're doing these other exercises, we're putting our body in different situations, right? But we need that flexibility and that balance for injury prevention so that we can continue to do this for years to come. Flexibility might just look at like stretching at home, doing things like yoga, mobility work, or kind of rolling out our body and doing stretches. It could be a multitude of different things based on what your body needs. One of the key things is just to use your breath through it too, because it's a different way to support our sympathetic nervous system by using our breath through the stretching and the balance. It supports our mind-body connection. And like I said, it will help prevent injuries moving forward, which will hopefully support our longevity.
That vestibular system is an interesting one, controlled in part by these wonky cranial nerves. I share that with you only because some of you are, and I love that term you use, the exercise snacks. We can actually do things. When I think of flexibility, I think of a stuck window, right? When you go to push up the window and it just doesn't go quite up. Our job in flexibility is to get the window open as much as we possibly can in a safe manner where the body can continue to self-regulate and you're supporting the nervous system in many different ways. Flexibility isn't just, oh my gosh, I bent down and I touched my toes. Sarah's point is excellent. Using the breath sometimes will unlock the window a little bit more. And this is yet another big bucket conversation. Flexibility doesn't have to look like Lululemon pants. It does not. It doesn't have to look like yoga blocks and a yoga studio and all kinds of things. Flexibility can look like simple stretching and then also working, believe it or not, eye exercises and then exercises related to balance which is our balance or our vestibular system. That's why all of us are here. So if this is foreign content to you, and something is, oh my gosh, I'd really love to know about that, you have access to us. We're giving you a little taste of all of these things. But I want to be clear, flexibility tends to be misunderstood. You don't have to be in a pretzel to be working flexibility. In fact, I could we could go off on a tangent and I could show you breathing exercises that would enhance, as she mentioned. So if you have questions about that one, please don't stay quiet. Happy to uncover anything that is confusing, because I know these big buckets, they contain a lot of things. And if you're not in it, how would you know about them? This is what we study all the time: nutrition, movement, and breath work, and all the things to help keep you healthy. So feel free to stop us at any point.
And like I mentioned, the balance and the kind of yoga and mobility work was something I brought into my journey, especially during my treatment and after my treatment, just to bring in that parasympathetic work, which I do think helped my injury prevention afterwards. After my treatment, I started yoga, but I also started playing indoor soccer. And I played indoor soccer before doing yoga, and I was like every other game, like pulling a hamstring or hurting something. But after I started with yoga and then started indoor soccer game, it just was night and day on the difference of my kind of injury level. I really encourage the flexibility along with any exercise you are starting, just because they really can support each other. We talked a little bit about during active treatment, we don't feel great, right? We don't want to move our body. We can barely get off the couch sometimes, but there has been studies on different pharmaceutical therapies that support against exercise related fatigue during cancer treatments and exercise during cancer for cancer related fatigue. And the study showed that any exercise we can do far outweighs any pharmaceutical intervention to support against cancer related fatigue. So whether it's a 10-minute walk every once in a while, or going out for a swim, or doing some yoga, that's just a way to support the mitochondrial turnover to help the ATP in the body so that you do actually have more energy. So it's you think, oh, if I do a little bit of exercise, I'm going to be even more tired. But sometimes you're actually less tired because you're just rejuvenating the body from the inside out. So we don't want it to be strenuous during treatments, but a little bit of exercise can help reboot your internal system.
It reminds me of that book, Outlive, by Dr. Peter. And I don't know who said it, but if we could put in a pill form the most powerful thing that we can do for healing, longevity, health span, it would be a pill of exercise, right? I don't know who said that, but it was that was in that book. And I believe.
Yeah, because it's hitting all your different organ systems, right? So it's supporting at all different levels. All right.
Questions? Anybody have any questions as she's switching gears a little bit? Good comments, you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we talked about the mitochondria a little bit, but I think this is probably why exercise is the most potent pill you can take, because it's really supporting us at the mitochondrial level. And so the healthier the mitochondria is, the healthy every organ and system in our body is. And exercise is probably the most powerful vehicle to support our mitochondria.
Love it.
And just some stats, post-diagnosis physical activity. So after we're diagnosed with cancer and we're doing exercise, those have a 33% lower risk of cancer-related mortality. So it is very preventative. Even if you're starting after being diagnosed with cancer, it can help prevent recurrence and just help us live longer and more healthy. I think a lot of people get confused and overwhelmed on how to fuel our body for exercise and staying strong maybe after a cancer diagnosis, but I don't think it has to be super complicated. I think we just want to be intentional on giving our bodies the building blocks to support our health. And so those building blocks are what are known as macronutrients and micronutrients. And so I think about those macronutrients in a few different ways as it relates to exercise. And so we think about building blocks for energy, and we get energy either from fat or carbohydrates, right? Those are the fuel for our body to help us have energy through daily life and have energy for exercise. So we want to make sure that our body either has adequate carbohydrates or adequate fats. When I think about those that are going through a cancering journey, I really focus on healthy fats, like the Mediterranean fats that kind of give us energy, because those are more prolonged fat energy sources, where carbohydrates are very short energy sources. We eat a carbohydrate maybe like piece of bread or a potato or a carrot, and it gives us a little bit of energy, and then the energy comes down. But if we have adequate fats like avocados or nuts and seeds, salmon, things like that, olive oil, that's like a long burning energy source. So it keeps us having energy a little bit longer. Our body can use it for a longer period of time. So making sure that we have adequate energy sources is key to being able to fuel our daily life and our exercise. And then I think of protein and amino acids. Those are the foundation. That's like the building blocks. They give us maybe a little bit of energy because they're calories still, but those are just the foundation level, because that protein, whether it's coming from animal-based protein, from vegetarian-based protein, those amino acids are supporting our tissue repair, especially if we're doing strength training. We need those amino acids from the protein to help rebuild the tissue so that we can continue to get stronger. And that counters some of the oxidative damage that was mentioned before, some of the inflammation that was mentioned before. If we have the right nutrients from those amino acids throughout the day, those are repairing those muscles so that oxidative damage isn't doing anything detrimental. And it's helping us rebuild the muscle tissue so that we can become stronger in the future. I really use the fats and carbohydrates for the energy sources, and the protein and the amino acids to rebuild the tissues.
So for the average exerciser, there was just something on the news recently too. It looks like it's about 0.8 grams of protein per pound of body weight. And then even more if you are a big exerciser. Now, I know that we've talked plenty of times in the past, and this is super important because I think this is where the confusion starts. We know that everybody's cancering journey is different. We also know that the quality of food sources that you're pulling from these buckets can differ. Would you be able to speak on, is there a range that most people can feel comfortable that they're getting adequate protein without getting into specifics of a specific kind of cancer?
Yeah, I think in general, so I guess just backing up, the general recommendations out there around protein isn't adequate. So most of the like my plate protein recommendations that have been out there for decades say about 0.8 per kg, which is very low, and it just helps prevent deficiency, but it doesn't help support optimization. And so studies more recently have been looking into protein, especially as we are aging, and understanding that we need more protein to support optimization, especially as we get older, because there's something called anabolic resistance as we get older. So our body needs a little bit more amino acids to send the same message to our muscles. And so I would say a baseline of maybe 0.75 per optimal body weight. So 0.75 per pound of body weight, maybe to 1.0 per pound of optimal body weight.
So let's really give that to our listeners. So again, I know that Sarah and we're geeking out in it, but let's make sure that you're geeking out with us. If I'm using, this is just an example. Let's suppose somebody's, and you heard the word optimal, right? Let's suppose somebody's optimal weight is 150 pounds. Let's just use that. What Sarah's saying is you're taking your body weight and you're multiplying it by 0.75 to come up with the number of grams of protein. I'm going to take it a step further. Let's make it easier. If we're using the same 150-pound person, and we just want to be super quick and understand it just for today's conversation, we need 150 grams of high quality protein to be divided out during the course of the day. Let me give you a frame of reference. A really good piece of chicken is going to run you about 20 to 25 grams of protein. Put in the chat that you're following with me, because I don't want you to get caught up on these being stuck on a number. Oh gosh, I didn't get my 150 grams. That's not what we're talking about. We're using it as a range. We're also emphasizing the sourcing of where you're getting this protein from. We also recognize that some people don't eat meat. We also recognize the fact that for some people, their diagnosis is not going to support specific kinds of protein. So we're talking generically. If this is of interest of yours, Sarah's on the call and she is available to you afterwards. It's not to be heady. It's more just to give you a frame of reference. Did I get that right? And so if it's 0.75 up to a pound, we want to linger. 150 grams of protein and a little bit less would work. Is that where you're going?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would say maybe the 1 gram per pound. So if you're at 150 and you're eating around 150 grams of protein, that might be for the more active individual that's
Yes.
doing some
Yep.
strength
Yep.
training. And then maybe just subtract maybe 30 to 40 grams if you're less active. So maybe if you're,
Total sense.
yeah, mildly active, you're 150 pounds, maybe you're eating 110 grams of protein.
Let me give you the perfect example of why when we get on one of these calls and we share this unbelievable information, how by no fault of any listener that they could walk away and interpret it differently. I want to read you this question, and then I want to show you that this is how it starts getting jumbled up. Radical Remission, that diet recommends no meat, no wheat, no sugar, no dairy. How do we feel about that? And so I'm going to pass it. I have my own opinion about that statement, but you're the expert. Please, I want you to break that apart for Laura so she doesn't leave being conflicted between two excellent sources of information,
Yeah.
us and the Radical Remission diet. There's a why behind
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I think we really believe in using animal meat that is very quality source. So there may have been studies in the past that might have shown that animal protein is causative or carcinogenic, but then there's others, and that's what maybe the standard American diet, animal protein based. So they're eating maybe some hamburgers, but it comes with a bun, some French fries, and a soda versus the vegetarian diets. When they've also looked at adequate protein that is good sourced in nature and coming from a healthy diet versus a vegan diet, there's not a difference in cancer risk. So we really believe in quality sourced animal protein. So that's whenever possible, right? Not right for everybody, but whenever possible, we're getting wild caught fish, we're getting pasture raised chicken, we're getting wild or grass fed beef, because those animals are eating clean nutrients, right? They're eating grass, they're eating other animals, they're eating seaweed and things like that. And so if possible, we're getting that animal protein from good quality sources. But the animal protein, those amino acids, do a lot of different things in our body. And so if we don't have adequate protein from those with those amino acids, our body's not able to go through different detoxification mechanisms, right? Amino acids is really important for our liver to go through the different phases of detoxification. That animal protein is coming with B12, which is a huge methyl donor. That's really important in a cancering process to support our epigenetics. That animal protein supporting our B12, our neurotransmitters that are supporting our mood balance. So there's a lot of things that we're missing out on, which doesn't mean we can never overcome that if we're doing a plant-based or a vegan diet, but it's just a little bit harder.
And I feel like, and Sarah, share with me if you agree, I feel like Radical Remission, they would require another chapter to bring on what Sarah just mentioned. Most people are not really invested in their meat sourcing or their protein sourcing from the degree that Sarah's discussing. Grass-fed, grass-finished, making sure that they're high quality all the way up until the time of preparing it as our food. So the no meat, first of all, I don't necessarily support any absolutes except for there's really not a redeemable quality in sugar. So that's fair. I can understand the dairy conversation. It's an inflammatory product. However, not necessarily everybody it needs to subscribe to the no dairy. The no wheat, the same thing with our gluten intolerance. Again, I think the bigger conversation needs to be, please don't go away confused, because what you all think and what you all are processing matters to us very much. And we want you to know that you're getting the latest in research. And as we know, research consistently changes. Nutrition information, if I'm mortified when I look back on 17 years in this field of nutrition, some of the things that I thought to be true 17 years ago are ridiculous today. Ridiculous number of times of eating, counting calories, the scale, all the things that we've come to find out as we've gotten better, we do better. Radical Remission, we love them. I love that book, and I'm sure that the why behind it has got a huge explanation, and perhaps that's what it was at the time of the writing of that book. I don't think anything's changed on sugar. Nothing's changed on sugar. Dairy, I changed a little bit, but meat, I think that we've gotten pretty good on understanding high quality lean protein prepared and processed in a way that continues to support healing, and that we're not adding in things like hormone enhanced food. We're not looking at the Mick chicken, if you will.
Exactly.
I hope that answers your question, Laura, because it's a really good one. And it's something that, again, when you all leave us, we want you to know more than when you came into the call. We don't want you to leave with more questions than you have gotten answers. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and that remission nutrition, like when we work with our clients, we take into like their preferences and what they want to eat, and also what their labs are telling us, what the stage of treatment they're in. And we design a diet and the macronutrients, the amount of fat, carbohydrates, and protein and amino acids to support that individual. So while we might be giving general recommendations right now, just know that whenever we work with somebody, it's super individualized to you and where your body is right now and what your goals are.
And what Sarah might recommend to Danielle might be something totally different than she recommends to Laura. The answer is always going to be depends. And it also depends because you yourself is unique. If you're not going to eat that, recommending that's not going to change the story, right? If that's not something that you're gonna sign on to. So it's a bit of a mystery and a puzzle. Just know that the job that Sarah and I have is to weed through the noise and give you the distilled information that, I don't want to make it sound like it's easy, but let's not make it so hard. Let's not make it so hard.
Yeah, and Stacey, I think one thing I get some questions about from some of my clients, because I also do cancer exercise consultations for people to help. So we talked about a lot of different exercise modalities today, but I'll individualize for them, like, is it aerobic or strength training we want to focus on, and how many days a week and how we are going to do that. So that's all very individualized, but they always have questions about like, how should I fuel myself around the exercise? Because if you're a past exerciser, you might have heard, we need to have a protein shake like right before and right after, or we need to fuel ourselves in between. And that's a very nuanced conversation too. It's really based on the individual. Some people prefer exercise fasted, and that's great if their body feels good. Some people need to have a little bit of energy going into it. But in my point of view, as long as you're getting the right amount of protein and calories and fat through the day, that's more important than what we do specifically right around exercise.
I will say, and I'd love for you to chime in, the hydration piece is probably something that I think that letting the little C topic off the hook on this one, as a trainer, hydration is something that is very overlooked. Yes, we hear it everywhere. Everybody's got their Yetis and whatnot, but I cannot emphasize enough, with and without the cancering journey conversation, that finding a way to get really high quality filtered water in with those electrolytes, and then the added, I'll say, bonus of being on the journey that has a lot of dehydrating components to it, so many different reasons. This would be one that I would invite all of us to put at the top of the list. So never mind the macronutrients and getting deep into how many chicken breasts you should have. I would say, get your head wrapped around what really good nutrition looks like, because I think that impacts everything. Our athletic performance, our brain function, whether or not we detox.
Digestion.
Digestions. The rule of thumb in my camp is we start the conversation at half of our body weight in fluid ounces of filtered water. Note that I said filtered. And then we use the top end of our body weight to not exceed that amount of water. Again, there's no hydration police. These are ranges. Half your body weight is the minimum, and then all the way up to your full body weight in fluid ounces of water, not to exceed that. Would that be the same, Sarah, in directing somebody on the journey?
Yeah, I think as baseline, half your body weight in ounces, and somebody that might be doing a little more exercise outside, cycling or sauna, you might need a little bit more. And that's where those, you mentioned the electrolytes, that those are things like sodium, potassium, and magnesium. Those electrolytes allow that water to absorb into your cells so you don't just pee it out. So we want that hydration to come in, but we want those electrolytes so that water sticks inside your body so your cells can use it. And so you can put like a little bit of sea salt in your water, you can put a little baking soda in your water, you can put a little electrolyte mix in your water, but that kind of helps just to make sure that
Are you
your
still
cells are
loving
really
Element
hydrated.
tea?
We might use elements. We might use, I like one called ATH. We like one called salt. We also have a DIY one I can send that you can send out in the notes. So I think it's finding one that you like the flavor of or that just works for you.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
We have about 5 minutes left, Sarah. I'm not sure if you're the end of
Yeah,
your,
I am.
oh, perfect timing. We're going to give our listeners an opportunity to quick seat fire off any questions that they might have for you. And if there are none, I want to give you an opportunity to give them your contact information. I know I owe you, that's you all, the 4-minute workout link. Sarah mentioned that she's got a good hydration mix that's you do it yourself, which is great. And I think that was all of the leftover housekeeping that we needed to take care of. So anybody have any questions for us? I really liked, Sarah, how you, as the folks are thinking, I really this shift in our conversation today. Yes, supported by nutrition, but fuel for the body doesn't necessarily have to be edible,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So this was awesome. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you all did too. It does not appear that we have any questions, so I'll go first and tell you Stacy at believebig.org, and then I want you to spend a lot of time, Sarah, because I have a funny feeling you'll be hearing from some folks. How can they reach you?
Yeah, so you can visit the Remission Nutrition website, so remissionnutrition.com. And I have a page on there that has a little bit about me and then my oncology nutrition consultant consultations or cancer exercise consultations. If you want to just kind of see what I'm up to for my exercises of the day or some of my recipes that I post online, I'm on Instagram at sarah.stratton.mtp. And then my email is sarah@remissionnutrition.com.
Fabulous. I like literally blown my mind. We're so impressed. What a rock star you are. That those are incredible photos and always we're so grateful. But I would be neglectful if I didn't give the true credit to God, right? And I want to say thank you for all of you joining us. We don't take for granted that an hour out of your day is a lot of time, and we just feel extraordinarily blessed that you spent it with us. We love you very much. This recording will be on believebig.org, and you'll click the tab that says Food for Thought, and you'll see all of our old episodes on there. We'll see you next month. Love you.
Thank
God
you.
bless.